Good day, everyone, and welcome to our lecture videos for understanding the self. Today, we will be talking about lesson 4, which is the psychological self. For this lesson, we have three learning outcomes. First, to realize the difference of real and ideal self through a self-assessment test for congruence. Second is to discover the influences of various psychological constructs of the self. And third is to appreciate the one's unconscious mind. Okay? Now, when we talk about what is psychology, it gives emphasis on how humans think, feel, and behave. Psychology is everything that concerns human beings from consciousness, memory, reasoning, motivation, personality, mental health, and other human experiences. Okay? Now, the so-called science of self is rooted from various psychological theories and principles, and the self has been used as an object of several psychological constructs. Perhaps it is important to explore some psychological theories of the self to further understand it. Okay? So now we will be talking about the self in the perspective of psychology. In the three previous lessons, we talked about first philosophy, followed by the sociological perspective, and third is the anthropological, wherein we talked about the impact of culture in our self. Okay? For today, we will have four psychological theories. First will be from Sigmund Freud, followed by William James. Third is from Carl Rogers. And lastly is from Dr. Donald Winnicott. Okay, so let's go directly to the concept of Freud. So Freud is a very famous psychologist, and his theory, the psychoanalysis, is one of the theories that behavior is determined by powerful inner forces, where most of which are buried in the unconscious mind. Okay? So sikat kaayo ni si Freud, especially kining ihang theory nga ginatawag og psychoanalysis. Okay? For Freud, he tries to answer questions about the human psyche. So what does psyche mean? It means the totality of the human mind that includes conscious and unconscious in psychology. To further understand how Freud uh, presents his concept of the human psyche, let us see his iceberg, which he used uh, to distinguish the three levels of the human psyche. So this is Freud's icebergs. Okay? So the three levels of human psyche, according to Freud, are first the conscious mind, followed by the preconscious mind, and lastly is the unconscious mind. In this iceberg, we can see that conscious mind is above the water level. The preconscious is almost submerged, and then the unconscious is totally submerged and in the bottom, and it occupies a lot more space as compared to the previous two. And in the iceberg itself, napagid siya further divisions which he calls as the id, ego, and superego, which we will later discuss. Now let's go first with the conscious mind. What is the conscious mind? For Freud, the conscious mind the is the one that contains all the information that a person is paying attention to at any given time. Meaning that everything that you are aware of in the present. For example, niini, kung karon you are feeling hungry and then you decided to satisfy your hunger by eating food, that means it is your conscious mind acting because you are aware of what you are currently doing. Okay? For example, giigang ka. So moto ang how do you resolve nga kanang giigang ka? Maligo ka. So that is conscious mind. You are aware of what you are doing in the present. Everything that you are aware of in the present, that falls under the conscious mind. Okay? Ikaduha, ang preconscious mind, it contains thoughts and feelings that you are not currently aware of, but can easily be brought to consciousness. Okay? Contains all the information outside of a person's attention, but readily available if needed. So, kining dinhi, nakulangan ni siya, you are currently unaware of this one, unaware of, but it can easily be brought to consciousness. What is an example of this? While you are having a conversation with your friend, nangutana siya, uy, nakahinumdum ka atong lesson na to kagahapon, katubong about kay Freud, di ba 3 levels of human psyche man to? So, pagkapangutana sa imong friend ato, na-recall dayon nimo. You immediately recall what he is trying to ask from you. So, nakahinumdum ko, katubi taong conscious mind, preconscious mind, ug unconscious mind. So, at that moment, nga wala pa ka na-trigger, wala ka gipangutana, you are not aware of, but you have that knowledge. Now, when you were triggered through that question coming from your friend, mo nang na-recall na nimo. Okay? This would refer to our short-term memory. Okay? So, kanang imuhang cellphone number, dili man nato na always nga ato ginang aware ta ana, ato ginang ginahuna. Pero pag dai mangutana sa imuha sa kanang pag nakay gi-fill upan, nya nagpangutana dito, mobile number. Dali ra ka makahinumdum 0909 blah blah blah. Or imuhang email address. When you were asked to provide your email address by your teacher, you immediately responded, this is my email address. So, dili ka aware of, currently aware of, you are currently not aware of that thing, that memory, but when you are triggered through a question maybe, through a feeling, or through an object, it immediately comes into your mind. Okay? Mo na ang ato ang ginatawag nga pre-conscious. Okay? Lastly is the unconscious. Mo ni ang pinakadako nga part. Okay? Now, what is the unconscious? It contains thoughts, feelings, desires, and memories of which people have no awareness of. Take note, you are not aware of this totally, but that influence aspects of their day-to-day lives. What are examples of this? Si Freud, guys, na siya gina-propose nga concepts or complex that every human child has, which he calls as the Oedipus and Electra complex. Kining si Oedipus, these are complexes that are belonging to the boys. So, dinhini siya sa unconscious mind, ha? Example, ang Oedipus complex. Sa pagkabata pa daw sa mga boys, kining Oedipus complex, part ni sa ilahang kinabuhi. Unsa may hinungdan, unsa din ning Oedipus complex? Si Oedipus is a character in Greek mythology, wherein si Oedipus, bata pa lang, i-abandon ni siya. And then, himo na siyang young man, nag-meet niya iyang father while traveling, and then he unknowingly, because nasa like argument, atong iyang papa, he unknowingly killed his father, wala siya knowledge nga ihali itong papa yung napatay, and then he fell in love with the wife of that man, which he is also unaware of nga mo to iyang mama. So mo to nga, kanang murag naabit ta kay sexual feelings towards your mother when you are young. Kay very controversial man gud ning concept ni Freud because it talks about sex, murag diha gid siya naka-focus ba. Mo na nga kining Oedipus complex daw, when you are a child, you have this, but you are unaware of this, and then even if you are unaware of this complex that you have, according to Freud, remember, this is only according to Freud, di magini ang uban nga psychologist does not accept this kind of concept, but according to Freud, even if you are not aware of this complex that you have, which he calls as the Oedipus complex, it will really influence your day-to-day life. Okay? Bisan pa og dili ka aware, bisan pag wa ka kabalo nga naaday ka ani, but it will really influence your judgments, feelings, or behaviors. That's for the boys. For the young girls or the young child nga mga babae, ang iha pong gitawag is the Electra complex. Similar lang siya og concept sa Oedipus. So meaning ang mga babae na po yung sexual feelings or attachments sa ilang mga papa at a young age. Okay, remember, this is only according to Freud. Okay, a short recap. Conscious mind, everything that you are aware of in the present. Preconscious mind, you are not currently aware of it. You are currently unaware of it. But it can be easily brought up into your conscious mind through a trigger which might come in the form of a question, a feeling, or an object, or etc. Okay? And conscious mind, you are totally unaware of this because these are your desires, feelings, thoughts, and memories, but it will influence how you deal with your day-to-day life, particularly on your judgments, feelings, or your behavior. Okay? Dili ka aware ni ini, but it will influence how you judge, how you feel, how you think, and how you act. Okay? So that is the 3 levels of human psyche according to Freud. Now, however, iya pa ginang gi-subdivide ang iyang understanding sa human psyche. So, he added 3 more structures which he calls as the id, the ego, and the superego. I know you are familiar with this concept because psychology of education, part gining pag-discuss ni ini. This is just a short recall na lang. So, the id, guys, sa simple nga pagsabot ni ining id, it operates on the pleasure principle. So, it contains all your desires and instincts. The second one, ego, it operates on the reality principle. It is the one responsible in controlling the id and expresses the id in a socially acceptable manner. Lastly, ang last nga ma-develop, according to Freud, is the superego. So this is the moral principle of the human psyche, which will manifest itself through the conscience. So aron na itong mas masabtan maghatag ta og situation where this three is operating. Okay? For example, as a young child, kung naa kay gusto, naadto ka sa mall, for example, pag baklay-baklay nimo sa mall, nakakita ka og dulaan nga nakaka-catch gud sa imong attention nya. Gusto gini mong maimuha. Ay for mga boys, gusto kayo aning mga bola sa basketball or mga tarak-tarak, mga pusil-pusil. Sa girls, siguro mga dollhouse or Barbie dolls or pwede nga unsa ba imong desire at that when you were a child. Siguro lahi-lahi man, ang uban gusto og mga libro, ang uban gusto og mga sinina, ing ana. Now, because you want that, because you like it, you really want to satisfy your desire of wanting it by having that object. So, ayun kasi mama, gusto ko ana. Unya kay imong mama kay wala may budget para sa extra nga mga butang kay naka-budget lang man ang kwarta para sa pangkonsumo ninyo for 1 week. So, mingon ang mama, nak, ayaw lang sa sunod na lang nak, birthday na lang nimo or sa Pasko na lang puhon. Now as a child, dili pa magkakasabot ni ini nga mga reason. It will your id now will take over. Meaning, ang imuhang desire or instinct nga masatisfy, ang imuhang gusto nga maimuha tong butanga, tong dulaana, tong sininaa, tong pagkauna, mag-wild ka. You will throw tantrums in public, magligid-ligid, magilak-kilak, di ba? I know some of you have experienced doing this when you were a child. This is now the id taking control of the human psyche. Since wala na-satisfy immediately iyahang desire, take note of this term, since wala na-satisfy ang immediately ang desire ni id, moto nga nagmaoy siya, moto nga nagwild siya. Okay? Because the id only wants to satisfy its pleasure immediately. Okay? Ikaduha, guys, is the ego. So, kining ego, when you grow up, from being a young child, maginahinay na you attend school, so, nana kay mga learnings, nana kay mga social interactions, this ego will now be developed and then it will operate in what we call as the reality principle. Meaning, mas masabtan na nimo ang butang. So, ato ang balikon sa example. Katong pagkabata pa ka, wala nimo napalit ang dulaan, nagwild ka, here comes the ego, now, nga, masabtan na niya nga, uy, kuanday, wala day kwarta si mama para ani. So now, the ego will try to control the id and express it in an socially acceptable manner. How will this work? So tungod kay nasabtanan nimo nga si mama di ay walay budget para ni ini, you will arrive in a compromise. Maybe may ingon ka nga, Mingon imong mama nga, nak, sige nak, kung maka 95 ka sa imuhang kuan or nak, inig birthday nimo nak, mas masabtan na nimo ang rason. And then you will act accordingly. So, sige ma, okay ra ma, sa Pasko na lang. Ay sige ma, sa birthday na lang nako. Ay mama, ning kamot ko og eskwela ma aron makakuan ko ngani ingon ana. That is now the ego acting. It controls the id. Naagyapon ang desire nga gusto nimo to, pero dili na bitaw siya manginahanglan og immediate satisfaction sa iyahang gusto. Immediate nga makuha dayon niya. You will understand nga pwede di ay nimo i-delay ang pag-satisfy sa imuhang pleasure. Okay? So, take note of these key terms. Sa id, immediate satisfaction of the pleasure. The ego, which now operates on what we call as the reality principle, it will understand that not all the time nga kinahanglan immediate ang satisfaction sa atong pleasure. It can now understand that we can delay the gratification of ourselves. So this is now the ego working. Okay? It controls the id and expresses it in a socially acceptable manner. Ikatulo guys, super ego. The super ego. Now this is operating in what we call as the moral principle, or it manifests itself in your conscience. In what way will we be able to know that it is the super ego working? Let us take for example ang katong situation kaya ganina. Unsa gani ang different responses kung si id di niya makuha dahil ang gusto, mag-wild, masuko. Okay? Kinahanglan siya immediate satisfaction. Ego will understand nga dili di ay pwede day i-delay and I can act, I can control my id. The ego will control the id and express it in a socially acceptable manner. Meaning, dili day need nga immediate judayon ang satisfaction sa pleasure. Now, si super ego, morning may makonsensya na bitaw ka sa imuhang ginabuhat. Sa una, sa bata pa ka, wa kay labot kung mag-wild ka diha, maulawan ka diha, magligid-ligid ka diha sa mall. Pagka nana si ego, di na ka mag-wild, di na ka mukuan, masabtan na nimo si mama. Pag nana si super ego, makonsensya na ka sa kanang gina-act sa imuhang id. So mo bitaw ning naani kuan din kuan nila depictions. The id portrays the devil, the ego is the man, and then super ego is the angel. So si id guys, since gusto lang man niya ang immediate satisfaction sa pleasure, ingnon niya sa ego, huy, ayaw, sugot nga ing ana, ayaw sugot kay mama, pagwal diha, pagligid-ligid. Mo na gina-ingon ni id. Para kay ego. Si super ego, may ingon pod nga, ayaw kay dili man na mo isakto. Dapat man nga ing ani ang atong buhaton. So mo ni nga si ego, luoy kaayo, maipit siya sa duha. Okay? So that this is how the id, ego, and super ego works according to Freud. The id will say to the ego that, oy, kinahanglan na to immediately masatisfy. Kung unsay gusto nako, kinahanglan makuha dayon, karon dayon. Wa nay unya-unya. Si super ego miingon nga dili. Miingon siya nga naay tamang panahon para niini. Ing-ani dapat ang atong buhaton. Now the ego will be the one who will choose because it is the one acting in the reality principle. Okay? So, si ego torn between two lovers gid pirmi, sama pa sa kanta. Si id miingon nga immediate satisfaction of pleasures, si super ego miingon nga dili kay ing-ani ang dapat according sa akong konsensya, according sa ako ang values nga na-internalize, according sa akong values nga na-learn, dapat ing-ani akong buhaton. So si ego mapatunga perminti. Okay? So this is the further structures of the human psyche according to Freud. Again, short recap from Freud. He divided the three levels of human psyche into the conscious, preconscious, unconscious. And he used an iceberg in order to present his analogy. Conscious, everything that you are aware of at the moment. Preconscious, everything that you are currently unaware of but can be recalled immediately. Meaning, dali lang, you just need a trigger in the form of a question, feelings, or object, etc. And then it will always come into your mind. Unconscious mind, you are totally unaware of this one, but this kining feelings, these thoughts will affect your judgments, your feelings, your behavior, and how you act in general. Okay? Examples ini katong Oedipus ug Electra complex. And then furthermore, ihapag yung gidivide ang psyche into three: the id, ego, and superego. Si id, pleasure principle; ego, reality principle; superego, moral principle. Okay? So that's it for Sigmund Freud. Now let's go with the second concept, which is coming from the theory of the self, whose proponent is William James. William James pala. So William James is known as the father of American psychology. Okay? Si Freud, he is known to be the father of modern psychology. William James, on the other hand, is known to be the father of American psychology. Okay? In his theory of the self, there are two things that we need to know: the I self and the me self. Okay, the I self and the me self. Para mas masabta nato siya, na ay short comparison of the two. Okay? The I self. What is this? It is the part of the self that knows who you are, who they are, and what they have accomplished in life. The me self, on the other hand, is a separate individual. A person refers to when talking about their personal experiences. Sir, theoretical man kaayo, lisod kayo sabton. So this is an example of how we concretize these concepts. When you make a statement, I know it was me who ate the cookie. Pero mag-social man kayo ang cookie. Mingon ng tag. I know it was me who ate the biscuit. Okay? When you make that statement, the me there, the me, I know it was me, when you talk about the me, it is the empirical self. It is the one who does the acting. It is the one who is acting out. Siya mo'y nag-ingon, siya gid mo'y mismo mo'y nikaon sa cookie. Okay? The me, the empirical self, when you talk about empirical kasi guys, it's about the experiences that a human person have through his external senses, which we have 5. So, mo ni nga, si me, siya mismo ang ni-act. Okay? The me kasi is known to be the object or the objective. It is the object of an action. Okay? Now, si I, on the other hand, it is the one capable of thinking and reflecting. It means nga, kabalo ka nga ikaw ang nagkaon ato tungod kay naa si I. Si me ang nikaon, si me ang actual nga nibuhat, but when you have that knowledge nga, ikaw di ay ang nikaon adtong pagkauna, that is the I acting. Okay? Si me, acting. Si I, it's capable of thinking and reflecting and thereby arriving at a knowledge that you are the one who is eating that biscuit or that cookie. Now, si I, guys, gidivide pa ni siya ni William James into 4. Not divide, he gave the characteristics of the I self. Okay, the first one, the initiator of actions. Sa statement ka ganina, I know it was me who ate the cookie. It was the cookie who is it was me who is acting, but the one who finds the origin of that action, who initiates the action, is the I. Okay? Si me ang ni-act, pero ang nag-initiate sa action, ang nagsugod sa action, ang ni-decide nga mo take into action, it is the I. Si me ang ni-act, si I ang ni-initiate. Okay? Identity, it means you are aware of your uniqueness. In what way mag-manifest ni siya? Maingon ka, unlike my friend who likes to dance, I love to sing. Unlike my sister who likes going out into parties, I like to stay at home and read my books. Unlike my mother who has brown eyes, I have blue eyes that is coming from my father. So, ing ana, you are aware of your own uniqueness. So, mo nang, it is the sense, it is the I who has a sense of identity. Okay? Initiator of actions, the identity. Ikatulo, continuity. Okay? Unsa man ning continuity? From the word continue, nagpadayon. Sa example ni I have learned this in the past, that is why I am still doing this in the present. In what way? Sa bata pa ko, gitudluan ko sa akong mama nga that I should be responsible in every action that I make. Okay? Now, that is why when I am now in this age, I am still practicing this concept because I have known this and I have learned this and I have practiced this since the past. Okay? Bata pa ka, gitudluan na ka nga, nak, dili gyud maayo ang mangilan. Nak, ayaw gyud pangatik. Nak, ayaw pasakiti ang imuhang ko isig kaingon. Ayaw kung kuan man kasi imong mga amigo, dula-dula lang, ayaw mo pagpasakitay. Ana. That is why when you become a young adult, you develop, nagya po na nga mga learnings nga imuhang na-acquire. So, ma-practice gyapon nimo siya into your social interactions. And then, ikaupat, awareness. You are aware of what is going on outside the self. It means, guys, nga nakay kana bitang awareness, sense of awareness nga ingani da nagapahitabo outside sa imuha. Dili lang kay sa imuha lang kang kaugalingon, pero nabog kay awareness of what is happening in outside world or in the physical world. Okay? That is awareness. So I self, characteristics, initiator of actions, identity, continuity, and awareness. Okay? Dayon ang me self. Si me self, guys, mo ni ang gi-divide ni James into 3. The material, the social, and the spiritual. Okay, what is this? The material, guys, from the word material, so very understandable na nga, it concerns everything that has matter or that has body, material. So, it is composed of the body, your body, because that is a material body, your families, clothes, money, and it also includes objects that are tangible, meaning magunitan na to bitaw. Magunitan na to siya because it concerns matter kasi, material. So, mga butang. Body, family, clothes, money, or objects that we can possess. Ikaduha, ang social self. From the word social po, mas masabtan po nato siya nga, this is who you are in a specific social situation. Meaning, it is always connected with social interaction. So, kung naay social interaction, di man pwede nga ikaw lang mag-socialize yung kagalingon, no? It involves other people. How does this manifest itself? Okay, we tend to change our actions, thoughts, emotions, words, and mannerisms based on the current social situation or the people with whom we are interacting. In what way man ni makita na to, guys? For example, naakay mga friend nga grabe kabuutan pag wadtog eskwelahan, paghuman, muuli, balay. So ikaw pod mismo tungod kay sila imuhang sabay, aya sila kay dili magigayaga kanang study lang yun, kanang mga buutan kayo og mga ginapang istoryahan. So ikaw pod maimpluwensyahan pud ka, you act according to how you are kining in a particular situation. So ikaw pod tungod kay ana imuhang mga classmate, for example, nagbuyok mo isa ka boarding house, so mo na nga i-follow po nimo sila. Kung imo ang mga boardmate, mga limpyado pug kaayo, so ikaw po mismo mahimo pug kang limpyado. That is now the social self. Pero kung for example, sa imo ang mga boardmate, pag humag klase, moadto pag night market kay maglaag-laag, or moadto pa pag sa seawall kay magpahangin, or ingani ang binuhatan kanang pagmata dili piluon ang habol, dugay kay mangmata, dugay pod mga tulog. So ikaw pod mismo maimpluwensyahan baka mo act ka accordingly. So that is now the social self. For example, mukaon ka sa karinderya. So kung naa ka sa karinderya, simple ra gyud kaya di jud ka mag-expect diha nga hatdan kag tubig, hatdan kag unsa diha, naay waiter, naay kining mo kuan sir, ana. Pero dito ka mo kaon pod sa mga 5-star nga restaurant, expect pod nga ang service pod nila different pod. Okay? So mo na nga you act according to how you are presented with a specific social situation. Ikatulo, guys, spiritual self. Okay, spiritual self, it contains everything who you really are inside. Okay? It includes your personality, your values, and your conscience. Okay? Typically, our spiritual self remains relatively stable throughout our lifetime, meaning lisod na kay ini siya bag-uhon. Unless you experience something that is very traumatic, for example, that will really change your life, so mapiktahan gyud ning ato ang spiritual self. In what way? Sa pagkabata nimo, ginatagaan jud nimo og value ang honesty. Now when you grow up, nakauyab ka, and then imuhang uyab very dishonest sa imuha. So tungod ato nga experience, murag na change imong paglantaw nga, uy, murag gusto ko mo balos. No na nga imuhang value nga ginagunitan nga honest kay ka sa una, imuhang kalimtan because I want to take revenge, blah blah blah. Ingani akong gusto ngana. So it will change, but relatively speaking, once you began, especially when you are already in the legal age, you began acquiring and internalizing values, seldom na lang jud kay ni siya mag-change. You take on good work ethics such as being responsible in your work, doing everything accordingly, submitting your forms or your outputs on time. Relatively na lang jud kani o seldom na lang jud kayo nga mag-change pa ni nga mga attitudes nato, no? That is why the spiritual self is considered to be relatively stable throughout our lifetime. Okay? So a short recap about William James. Iyahang concept, iyahang theory of the self, the I and the me. The I is called the subject, the me is the object, meaning siya ang nag-act. Si I na ay characteristics of pagkabuok, initiator, identity, continuity, and awareness. Si me, divide into three, the material, the social, and the spiritual. Okay? How do we understand the difference between the I and the me? For example, when you make the statement, I know it was me who ate that cookie, it is the me who is actually doing the action. But when you are able or capable, because you are capable of thinking that you are the one who is eating that cookie, that is now the I acting. Okay? The one who does it is the me. The one who initiates that act of the me is the I. The one who acts is the me. The one who initiates the action of the me is the I. That is according to William James. Si me ang nag-act, si I ang nag-initiate. Again, si me ang nag-act, si I ang nag-initiate. Now let's talk about the third psychologist that we will have today, who is Carl Rogers. Now si Carl Rogers, guys, dali ra kay ni sabton ng ihang concept. So dinhi taas-taas ni siya. Pero ang mga ato lang yung hinumduman about his concept is this: ideal self and the real self. Ideal self, from the word ideal, guys, meaning who would you like to be? Muning atong dream bitaw, atong aspirations, atong pangandoy nga. Ako gusto ko nga maing ani jud ko. Gusto jud ko nga mahimong responsable nga tao. Gusto ko mahimong maayong tao. In what way? Gusto ko nga honest ko. Gusto ko nga matinumanon ko. But at the same time, gusto ko nga critical po ko manguna-una. Meaning, dili lang ko sunod kung sunod. Follow kung follow. Mag-ask ko questions if necessary. Gusto ko nga makahuman ko eskwela aron ma-acquire na ko ni. That is the ideal self. Okay? How you aspire to be. Okay? Now, the real self is who you really are. Okay? Even if gusto nimo nga mahimo kang honest, pero in reality, imuhang actions naga-contradict sa imuhang aspirations, this is now the real self, who you really are. In what way man mag-differentiate kining ideal ug the real self. Okay? Example, guys, ang usa ka tawo or ang usa ka empleyado, he considers himself or he thinks of himself as very honest. This is now the ideal self. Pero kay sige man siya ka-late, sige mo siya pangilad sa iyang boss. Nganong malate siya. Pagka Lunes, boss, traffic kaayo kay naplatan ko. Pagka Martes, boss, traffic kaayo kay nabangga. Pagka Miyerkules, boss, traffic kaayo kay taas kayong pila sa gasolinahan. Pagka Huwebes, boss, kuan boss, akong gihatod pa akong anak dito sa eskwelahan niya, istorya pa ko sa advisor. Yang hinungdan na dayon nga sige siya ka-late, kay dugay siya mumata. For example, in the case of the students, you think of yourself as very responsible. Pero ang imuhang pag-submit sa imuhang mga forms, sa imuhang mga outputs is very late. So ideally, you think of yourself as responsible. But who you really are is quite different from what you think what you think that you are. So ideal, who would you like to be? Real, who you really are. Okay? Now, unsa may importance ni ining duha? Para manggod kay Carl Rogers, guys, ang pinakataas nga tumong sa mga tao is self-actualization, meaning to be a fully functioning person. Okay? So, mo na pinakataas nga goal sa mga tao aron makabot nila ang ilahang full potential. How will you be able to reach this self-actualization? By having congruence between ideal and the real self. Okay? What is congruence, guys? Meaning, nag-abot sila. Parehas sila. They are similar with themselves. The ideal and the real. Equal sila. Congruence. Diba? Kung sa math, congruent, equal. So, dapat, who you would like to be and who you really are, there should be congruence between the two in order for you to become a fully functioning person. Now, ngano man di ay na ay congruence, ngano na apoy incongruence ning real ug ideal. Okay? Ang usahay guys, siyempre kanang kita nga mga bata, very important jud kayo ang role nga gina-play sa ato ang mga parents. According to Rogers, they are the primary caregivers, or they are the primary ones who would influence how congruent our ideal and real self would be. Okay? For example, your parents or one parent will only give his children conditional love. Meaning conditional, you are only accepted if you act in a particular way. Okay? So, ang resulta ni ini guys, na ay incongruence, meaning imuhang ideal self, imuhang ginataguan, imong kuan aron nga madawat ka. Okay? Ideally, you are very creative. You would like to be in music, you would like to be a musician by playing piano, ana. Pero imong parents gusto ka nga mahimong academic. So they don't want you to pursue your passion of being a musician. That is who would you like to be in the future. But ang ilahang gusto is that kuan ka. So mo na magresulta na ang incongruence. You are only accepted if you act in a particular way. Congruence, on the other hand, is receiving unconditional love. Okay? So, congruence means accepting you for who you really are and for who would you like, supporting you for who would you like to be. Meaning, kung imuhang actions is that you want to play music, you want to play piano, that's who you really are, and you see yourself as being a successful musician in the future, which is your ideal self. So your parents will support you, will accept you for who you are, even if naa sila gusto unta nga lahi nga pangandoy sa imuha. But since they love you very much, so walay condition sila nga ginaset. So now, it will result to the congruence between the ideal and the real self. Who you really are, meaning ikaw nga gusto jud ka nga magkuan kining imong gina-practice dinhi, nagatugtog kag music, nagakuan ka, and then because you want to become like this in the future. So naay equality, naay congruence sa duha. Now, kung naamang goy incongruence guys, when you become an adult, it will lead to anxiety. Ngano man? Because gusto ka nga kaning example ni ining empleyado din ihang pangtantaw sa iyang kaugalingon is that he is very honest. Pero in reality, sige na siya pangilad. But he does not want to be discovered. He does not want to to destroy this result. Di siya gusto magbag-o ba? Di siya gusto nga ma-acquire ning iyang gusto nga ideal self. Nagtuo lang man siya nga honest na siya. Pero in reality, sige na siya pangilan. Nagtuo siya, he believes that he is honest, that he has acquired his ideal self, pero in reality, he acts away from this ideal self. His real self is very different from his ideal self. Nagtuo lang siya nga, na-acquire niya na congruence. Mo ni nga, mag-take on siya og defense mechanisms because in reality, di siya gusto i-accept nga dili gid siya honest. Okay? Mo ning lisod diri. Okay? Mo na nga very important ni when we are growing up to receive conditional and unconditional love. Maybe kung wala atong parents, wala ta naglako sa atong parents, from our immediate caretakers or from ourselves. Okay? Very important gud po nino ning self-love because in order for us to be a fully functioning person, there should be congruence between the ideal, who would you like to be, meaning if you think of yourself as being honest, in reality, you should really also be honest. In your dreams, you want to become a musician, in reality, you really have to practice music in order to achieve your dreams. Mo ni nga very important nga i-acquire na to ang congruence between ideal and real self. Okay? Carl Rogers, ideal, real. The goal is to become a fully functioning person. How would you acquire that? By congruence between the ideal and real self. Dayon, nganong mag-result, nganong na ay incongruence? When at an early age, you receive what we call conditional love, meaning you are only loved or accepted if you act in a particular way. So, mo ni nga, when you become an adult, it will lead to anxiety because you do not want to acknowledge or accept the fact that who you really are, that who you would like to be is quite different from who you really are because truth hurts, really. That is why you take on defense mechanisms such as rationalization, meaning you reason out, you try to provide reasons why you are having different actions, anong bisag mali na, rason lang gihapon, palusot lang gihapon. Mo ni mga usual nga defense mechanisms nga gina-take sa usa ka adult nga nagka-experience of incongruence. Congruence, on the other hand, by providing unconditional love, will result to congruence of the ideal and the real self, and then therefore lead to self-actualization and become a fully functioning person. Okay? That is Carl Rogers. Last na good, guys. This is from Dr. Donald Winnicott. So dinhi na ay ginatawag si Rogers nga ideal self. So, in relation to Dr. Donald Winnicott, na po niya ginatawag nga true self or the true and the false self. Kay para kay Dr. Donald Winnicott, who you really are, meaning who you really are inside of you, this is your true self. Okay? Dini kay Carl Rogers ang who you really are, pero naapod kay who would you like to be? Naa kay ideals. Dini kay Dr. Donald Winnicott, nag-focus lang siya sa who you actually are. Okay? Ang reference kay Carl Rogers ay who you really are, which might be different from who would you like to be, your ideals. Kay Dr. Donald Winnicott, nag-focus lang siya sa true self nimo, meaning kutob lang siya din sa real, sa who you really are. The false self, guys, is the one that acts as a shield in order to protect who you really are inside. How is this to be understood? For example, a baby is acting spontaneously and genuinely, meaning he is just being true to himself. Muhilak, magligid-ligid, o unsa pa ba. That is his true self acting out, he really is. Now, ang kining iyahang responses, iyahang actions, iyahang behavior will be controlled by his primary caretakers. For example, siyang mama, siyang papa, o kinsa ba nag-amping siya when he is young. Now, this control by the primary caretakers will lead to you thinking that your needs and desires are unacceptable. Sige hilak sa bata, sa kabisi sa mama kay, syempre, lisod ba agad po no? Nanglaba, nagatiman pa sa ubang mga anak, nanglimpyo sa balay, wala na siya na tagaag pagtagad. So siyang paghilak karon nga gusto unta siya nga kargahon, gusto unta siya nga kaning kuyugan, he will learn i-adjust niya ang iyahang mga behavior. He hides his true self. So instead of crying nga tungod kay gusto siya nga kargahon siya, he will cry because he will try to express nga dili na ko kinahanglan nga ingani, di na ko kinahanglan mo, di na ko gusto kaya na kung ako lang. Although bata pa na siya, but dili mi ginaton ma if it's really happening inside the child. Pero that is how ma-modify. That is how the false self begins to develop. Okay, because naay different responses imong primary caretakers to your needs and desires, and sometimes you feel that they are unacceptable, so you modify, you comply according to how they respond to you, meaning you control your behavior, and therefore create a false self, which protects the vulnerable true self. Okay? These concepts are very relevant, especially as of today. In what way man ni nato ma-experience? Di ba? Kining when we talk about the ideal self, naman gid tay mga pangandoy tanan. We all have dreams in the future. And we would really like to work hard in order for us to achieve who would we really like to be in the future. Pero naagi mga factors nga makapugong sa atuwa in achieving our dreams. First, you are not acting in order for you to achieve who you would really like to be, because in reality wala nag-abot ang imuhang dreams ug ang imuhang kinsa ka, meaning sa gusto ka nga mahimong successful pero ang imong ginabuhat karon will not lead you to become successful. So ingana bitaw, so mo ni nga very important kay nga factors that we would be able to know who we really are and who would we like to be in the future, for us to start acting in a way nga in the future ma-achieve yun nato atong ideal self. And that ideal self will not remain ideal, but it will become reality. Dili na lang siya dreams, dili na lang siya pangandoy, but because you worked hard, it will now become your real self. It will now become who you really are. Again, akong balikon, kitang tanan na agi mga pangandoy. Pero naay babag sa pag-achieve nato sa atong mga pangandoy. And sometimes this kani nga babag, this is ourself. Okay? Because we are not acting in a way that will lead us into achieving who we aspire to be in the future. That is why if we realize nga, uy, gusto man day ko mahimong successful, dapat bag-uho na ko ni nga batasan. Dapat nahimo na kong mas responsable. Dapat mas mahimo na kong maningkamot. Dapat mas magtipid day ko. Uy, dapat mag-take risk day ko kay I want to become a businessman. Uy, dapat I need to think before I act. Uy, I need to think before I click. Okay, this will help me achieve who I want to be in the future. And when you have acquired that congruence, your ideal self will not remain a dream. It will not remain an aspiration. It will now become who you really are. Your ideal self, guys, will now become your true and your real self. That is the goal that we would like to achieve, hopefully, in the future. That our ideal self, who would we like to be, will not just remain who would we like to be, but it will become who we are actually. I hope that each one of you will be able to realize your dreams in the future. That your ideals will not only remain ideals, but it will become who you really and who actually are. Okay? So that's it for the concepts of psychological self. And I hope that you have learned something from the concepts of Freud, James, Rogers, and Winnicott. Thank you for listening, and God bless.